All right, it's 3:43 p.m. on Saturday. It's June 13th, 2020. I'm just here to do a video about the update the current situation with pandemic. And what's been said is that phase 2 is now here in certain information. So I want to go over this, and I will read titles from YouTube videos and also from specifically Zero Hedge articles relating to all of this. All right, the very first title as I pull this up says this. This is from Bloomberg Markets and Finance. It says, quote, "Second U.S. virus wave emerges." Okay. It says, since the pandemic swept over the world, over 7 million people have been infected and 400,000 have died. And it goes on. The next article says, second wave in the United States. As lockdown ends, is COVID getting worse? And it says, with the U.S. seeing lockdowns and stay-at-home orders come to an end, there are concerns that the U.S. may see a second wave. Next says, Bill Gates warns of a second wave of coronavirus in the U.S., COVID-19. This was a while back, but Bill Gates said new testing machines and methods should be able to get the United States up to between 400,000 and 500,000 tests per day. So that was like a month and a half ago, that article. But regardless, it shows what they're planning to do, and we're further ahead in that, okay? We know with Event 201, he's right in the middle of all this, Johns Hopkins University. I guess he knows what's going to happen because, you know, he has part in it, let's put it that way. Here's the next from Bloomberg Markets again. A second wave of COVID-19 infections is expected. Johns Hopkins University Farley, professor of nursing, explains the timeline for vaccine testing and the dangers of, and then it goes on. Again, they're directly involved in this with Gates, Event 201. This was something that they anticipated and planned like an exercise to do, and this is exactly what happened. Johns Hopkins has been the ones with the main information in tracking what has been going on supposedly and the statistics. And I did a video about that, explaining how, I guess, what was it, the CDC went way down and lowered their estimates of deaths for this so-called pandemic, like ridiculously, so that it was almost inconsequential, and especially in relation to, there we go, okay, especially in relation to, hold on a second, oh boy. All right, anyway, I forget what I was going to say. Sorry, I get interrupted here like I was the whole day. Every time I tried to make this video with dogs going crazy they wouldn't stop. What was I saying? I'll try to go over this again. Johns Hopkins, Farley explains the timeline for vaccine testings. And then I said, Event 201, they're directly involved. Oh yeah, okay, I'm sorry. The CDC lowered their estimates ridiculously, as I had reported. And my point is that, most of these so-called deaths, I explained this, were with people with pre-existing conditions and like overwhelmingly in the elderly, and ridiculously inconsequential with those between the ages of up to 59 years old, to the point where it doesn't even register as far as what's normal for like a flu season or something. It's nothing major or different absolutely than that. So here's the next. It says, will U.S. protests spark a second wave of COVID-19? D.C. lockdown diary from Financial Times. The FT's Kieran Stacy outlines concerns from public health officials that protests in several U.S. cities over the killing of George, so forth. It goes on to say, so this is it with the protests being involved with, quotes, sparking another round of this even worse. George, what's his name? Anyway, next one is CDC director warns of second wave of coronavirus. Next one is coronavirus update. CDC warns lockdowns may resume if cases go up as Trump shrugs off second wave. That's Bloomberg. This one says coronavirus outbreak. Whistleblower warns U.S. faces, quote, darkest winter without plan for a second wave. That's from Global News. Next one says, expect a second wave of COVID-19 in the fall. Former FDA chief Gottlieb. That's from CNBC. There will be a second wave of... There will be a second wave of COVID-19, cell biologist Ron says. That's from Bloomberg. So notice their wording now. There will be a second wave. They're conditioning everyone that not only is it here now, but this is coming, and it's definite. Next one, U.S. virus hotspots reopen as second wave looms. So they're going to potentially say, well, that's the reason why it will happen in the future. They're going to say because they reopened too soon, or the hotspots just never really went away and it just got worse. Now, WHO, World Health Organization, warns of, quote, second peak to first wave of coronavirus. So now we have not just different waves, we have to watch a second peak to first wave of coronavirus. So that's going to be maybe in between the next one in the fall or the winter. See what I'm saying? So in other words, keep the action going, keep the engine running, about the seriousness of it. And so like I said, they're saying it's here, making it seem like that. And so we're going to see a continuation of this and a spike, although it may not be, a major one, put it that way. The major part of this to come in the fall and winter, okay? And that was from Bloomberg. It says World Health Organization officials have warned that the first wave of the coronavirus outbreak could include a second. Next one says U.S. continues to reopen as second wave COVID threat looms large. Next one from Daily Mail. The Global Times, Beijing's flagship nationalist tabloid, has criticized the United States over its handling of the coronavirus. Demonstrations in coronavirus hotspots spur fears of second wave. A new report says that demonstrations have taken place in every one of the 25 U.S. communities with the highest concentration, it doesn't say the rest, but I guess of COVID cases or whatever. Next one says, this is coronavirus updates. Second U.S. wave emerges as cases spike in 22 states, weeks after states reopen. That's from Bloomberg. So they're saying here, it's saying plainly, second wave emerges as cases spike in 22 states, regardless of what the truth is about that or what have you. But that's what's being played up and said here. TAM warns of an explosive second wave of COVID-19 if reopening is mishandled. COVID-19 or COVID modeling released by Ottawa estimates that confirmed cases could surpass 107,000 by June 15. And that's not unusual. I went through the statistics. Next one, no second wave of COVID-19 in America. Dr. Samadi explains the facts. And he says, don't let panic and hysteria get ahead of facts and common sense. Look at what is going on in New York City which was a hot spot, and it cuts off. I don't know what else he said. But, yeah. Again, I'll mention this person, Jason Goodman. He was on the ground in New York. He showed exactly what was going on and was very tough in, getting to the truth and finding the answers and showing it right on camera. And there really was very, very little, even less than normal, that was shown on camera going on in New York. And he shows that, or I should say he has that, all those videos on his channel that you could see. Just go look for it, the COVID-19 or what have you video list. Now, Trump says U.S. wouldn't close over second wave of coronavirus. This is CBS News. As health experts warn of the risk of a second wave of the coronavirus later this year, President Trump told reporters yesterday, and that's what he told them, the U.S. wouldn't close over second wave of coronavirus. So could you imagine the repercussions of not only supposedly this, will come back and all the things that this will cause all over again, maybe even worse, but the political repercussions and it's just crazy. Next one, it says global stock markets plunge over fears of second wave of COVID-19. I guess that was a few days ago. I think the stock market went down like 2,000 or so, over 5%. That was like some major thing that rarely happens. And they're saying over the concerns of COVID-19. It says McMaster University's Marvin Ryder breaks down the volatility in the stock markets and what it means for the Canadian economy. So this is just not happening locally. It's a worldwide sort of play going on here. For instance, the next one says coronavirus. Hong Kong braces for scary second wave. Fears are growing in Hong Kong of a second wave of coronavirus. The territory has been successful in containing the first wave. And then Japanese islands, second wave warning, COVID-19 cases jump as lockdown lifted. That's 60 Minutes Australia. So now China braces for a second wave of COVID-19. A coronavirus lockdown has been imposed in a second city in China this week. About 21 new coronavirus cases are whatever. And then there's more. I'm not going to read the rest relating to this pandemic of the videos that I saw when I did a search, about this. There's a lot more. But then I want to get into the articles, Zero Hedge articles quickly, and read some of their related pandemic titles just in the past, couple of days. And so listen to it. All right, now further things. Here's a title: Stockman calls BS on the latest COVID-19 fear-mongering about spikes in Texas and Arizona. Probably elsewhere. The title cuts off. Next one says Colorado bill requires re-education for parents who refuse the COVID-19 vaccine. I read a little bit about that, and I think what's going to happen here is that if the parents refuse to have their children vaccinated, they're going to be forced to this re-education camp, put it that way, and forced to go through this, and also their children can be taken away from them. From what I heard, I'm not saying this is accurate or not, if that's what they do, if they refuse to allow their children to be vaccinated, okay? So that's pretty crazy. Next one says COVID-19 lockdowns spark 41% collapse in black-owned businesses in America. COVID spreads to 60 plants, sparks fear of U.S. food shortages as second wave strikes. Again, it's in the present tense, strikes. In other words, it has struck. Okay? Next one, CDC issues new guidance, says lockdowns may be necessary if COVID-19 makes dramatic comeback. Live updates, and that's apparently what they're saying is in the process of happening because of the riots especially, and opening the country and people not distancing, all those things, getting swarms of them together and at beaches or whatever. So that's like, seems like right in the works here amidst all of this. See, I told you so. See, you did it to yourselves. Can't blame anyone else now. We warn you, Next one says Fed sees alarming picture of small business health. COVID has exposed, quote, persistent fragilities. And I had said this a few back, that they're saying that 50% of small businesses anticipate that they will be out of business, no longer be in business shortly or whenever, because of this. So over 95% of UK COVID-19 deaths had pre-existing condition. So there you go. That's the truth as far as I'm concerned. Now Gamma turns negative as futures slide on Florida COVID surge report. Houston, quote, on the precipice of disaster as officials weigh reimposing stay-at-home order amid spike in cases. It speaks for itself, that regardless of what the truth is. Texas reports record jump in COVID-19 infections as U.S. total tops 2 million. So again, these figures are all over the map. Public health officials alarmed by rebound in new COVID-19 cases as protests continue. Florida reports another record jump in new cases as global COVID-19 count nears 8 million. S&P futures world stocks tumble on dismal Fed outlook, second virus wave fears. Beijing region in, quote, wartime emergency after new virus cluster emerges at major food market. Now, some of these are a bit outdated, not that recent, but most of what I said is recent, even from the past day or two. Like I said, the Zero Hedge articles just from the past 3 days or so, and that's all the stuff in just that amount of time that has been done articles on. So what I'm going to do here is, I know this is getting long. If anyone wants to stay with me, I'll read these articles. Not the articles, but the titles from Zero Hedge. Again, this is just in the past 3 days. These are miscellaneous, not related directly to the virus or whatever you want to call it. First one says, default by mall owner CBL sparks another manic bid by Robinhood day traders. So apparently you could trade on the bankruptcy or default of malls, as crazy as that sounds. And I had said what I experienced going out nearby to a major mall, very major mall, very large, that's been closed all along, that's still closed. And there's yet a second that I failed to mention that's also very large and very well known, next to, the ability from upstate or New York to come down here to go to. And last I was up there, I don't know, two weeks ago, let's say, that was totally closed, and I would imagine it's still closed. So, the writing is on the wall, as I say, not just with the COVID, whatever, but the economic repercussions, commerce, jobs, ability for others to pay their expenses, All those type of things are part of this in different aspects and cards that sort of are being played in this. And this one says Seattle councilwoman says warlord-controlled Chaz should remain in public hands. So if you know about that story, Capitol Chaz, I think it's Capitol Hill Autonomous Zone, I think. So supposedly, like, they kicked all authorities and the cops and out of there, and it's just like, quote, the people in control. But then this one says it's like actually a warlord is actually in control there. But whatever they're saying, we know these things are put-ups, basically, for the most part, and that's why it's being allowed. New York City proposal would defund $1 billion from NYPD budget, so they're going after. I wrote this down, so I wanted to say this. They're disbanding local authority for civilian control. So what happens when you have no more civilian local authority, the police and so on? You have anarchy. What's going to happen? Either others, whoever they are, whether they say it's in the name of democracy or whatever, are going to come in and try to gain control, or you're going to have the military. So which one do you think it is? I mean, a lot of these protests and things are all done under the banner of freedom and rights and sticking up for this person and that, and they're letting it go. So far, they're just letting it go, until the point where they're going to possibly come in eventually, and that's what it will be. You have to have the National Guard and or the military or whatever forces in there, with the civil unrest, like I say, the political causes, the race card, turmoil, the economy. If people start protesting all these things, and with the virus, the prosecution that could come about if things get much more stricter, and with these, emergency laws, doing whatever they want to, saying whatever they want to, regardless of, what anyone else says, limiting rights and so on. Again, food scarcity and the financial markets and commerce aspect of all of this. I had a dream a couple nights ago. I'm not going to get into it, but it seemed to have to do with this. Somehow they told me, I didn't even know what they were accusing me of. They're saying that my trial was next Saturday or something. I kept telling them, what are you accusing me of? What is this all about? And they wouldn't answer me, and they wanted me to stay. I said, I'm not staying here. This is against the Constitution and people's rights. I say, I'm walking out of here. I won't get into it, but because it's too long and it might not even be really neat to talk about this. But so anyway, getting back to the New York, and that's not just in New York. They want to get rid of the cops. They want to disband, take control, that type of thing. So-called free country, free democracy, when really it's subversion and anarchy that the ones who are doing this is at the heart of it, though it seems so gentle and kind and benign, for good causes. Next one says virus contact tracing for all Singaporeans to be tracked by government in post-COVID world. So that's in Singapore, and that's what they're planning everywhere. Again, with the Trace Act, HR 6666, test, reach, and contact everyone, which it stands for. Once they get everyone vaccinated and then chipped, that's where that's heading, I believe, especially scripturally. COVID-19 strikes D.C. National Guard members who responded to protests. So now it's like, now they're saying, like, well, not only is this sparking, a new outbreak with all these protesters and people who've gotten together in major cities, and they're starting a new outbreak. But now it's like, well, even the police or the National Guard are in danger or are testing positive, and have, what I'm trying to say. I can't spit out the words. So that they would be out of the picture. So, who's gonna restore order? If they say, oh well, even the military, if they're brought in, then they were affected, and so, they're not in the picture. So these are just other things in consideration of all that's going on. Minneapolis City Council votes to replace police department with community-led model. That sounds right out of Obama. What's their name? The community activists or community, whatever they're called. Weather Underground, Bill Ayers. That's their byword. When you see community in it, it's communism, subversion, anarchy, anarchists. That's what they want to do. Get rid of the police, get rid of the army, infect everyone so there's no one to even protect anyone, and then let these community-led models, these community-led individuals take control, New Jersey tax collections crater by a record 29%, warns of more pain as stimulus ends. As businesses flee the violence, will major U.S. cities be transformed into economic wastelands? It only took 2 days for Seattle's autonomous zone, quote-unquote, to descend into chaos. We need to act now. UN warns world faces worst food crisis in 50 years. Engineering a race war. Will this be the American police state's Reichstag fire? So I didn't mention that, but the race war card, I forgot to say that, No, the U.S. economy will definitely not be returning to, quote, normal. Crisis, quote, incubation phase. John Hussman warns it's coming gradually and then suddenly. A third of renting Americans worried about next payment as, quote, recovery hopes fade. London police warn of perfect storm as right-wing groups vow to defend statues from BLM. U.S. shale faces bankruptcy wave amid, quote, long and arduous global downturn. Saks Fifth Avenue shields New York City store with barbed wire attack dogs to deter looters. This is the condition of things. Of course, it's being played up, and it might be more isolated than obviously how it's being presented. But in general, these things are happening really throughout the country. Anyway, and this one says 25,000 more store closures expected as pandemic-fueled, quote, retail apocalypse rolls on. Investors panic buy bankrupt companies, big tech, bonds, and bullion. A biblical locust plague has put millions on brink of famine. Here's exactly what will happen if police departments are disbanded or defunded across America. The great divide between stocks and the economy, and yeah, there is a great divide. There's no reality to any of it, to anything going on financially, to the stock market and what's actually happening, or all the money that's being thrown out and spent, from out of nowhere, in all of this. There's no reality to any of it. So anyway, and that's what's being said out there for whatever it's worth, as the rapture and the tribulation time comes close, looms, appears to be near, as we see all these things gathering, these clouds gathering, and the rhetoric ramped up, that the second wave is here in no uncertain terms, or others saying is imminent and expected and not even a question, as it's being orchestrated to come about or come to pass. All right, that's it. Bye now.